I shared this book, The Religion of Whiteness, How Racism Distorts Christian Faith, and I said I would share some of the research that they go through in this book to buttress their argument that whiteness is a religion in and of itself that a lot of American Christians are committed to. And so I wanted to share some of the practices that the authors identify as related to this religion of whiteness. They include the highly selective use of Scripture, an epistemology of ignorance, veneration of the sacred symbols, which they identify as a white Jesus, as the merging of the cross and the flag, whether it's the American flag or the Confederate flag, and increasingly guns are a part of the sacred symbols. And then there's also the preservation of the racial order. And I wanted to start with the first practice, the highly selective use of Scriptures. That's obviously the one that's going to be most interesting to me. And I just wanted to share the results of a study they did. And they start off saying, we asked a nationally representative survey of U.S. adult practicing Christians the question, how often should the Bible be used to determine what is right and wrong? And the options were always, sometimes, or never. About half the group answered always. In other words, these are people who think that the Bible should always be used to determine what is right and wrong. For people who answered always, they had 4 additional questions. They gave them examples of passages from Scripture and asked if these passages from Scripture should be used to determine right or wrong in the given situation. And the first one was a control question. They said, in the Bible, the Apostle Paul taught that people should not use unwholesome words, and that's Ephesians 4:29. Therefore, it is bad to use curse words. And then they had 3 test questions. The first was, in the system of laws that God gave the Israelites to follow, there were laws that protected foreigners from being treated unjustly. Deuteronomy 24:14. Therefore, it is good to have laws that protect foreigners from being treated unjustly. Second one, in the Bible, the prophet Nehemiah confessed sins committed by himself, his nation, and his ancestors. Nehemiah 1:6. Therefore, it is good to confess sins committed by me, my nation, and my ancestors. Number 3, the first Christians listened to the complaints of an ethnic minority group that was being treated unjustly and empowered leaders within that minority group to correct the injustice. Acts 6, verses 1 through 11. Therefore, it is good to listen to the complaints of ethnic minority groups and empower leaders within those minority groups to correct injustices. And then here are the results. They divided the groups into white, black, and Hispanic practicing Christians. And of the people who answered always to the initial question about when the Bible should be used to determine right and wrong, 55% of white respondents, 55% of black respondents, and 52% of Hispanic respondents said that because of Ephesians 4:29, it is bad to use curse words. And then for the 3 test questions, you see that for the white respondents, the number went down to 42% for the laws protecting foreigners question, 40% for the confessed sins committed by me, my nation, and my ancestors question, and 39% for the good to listen to the complaints of ethnic minorities questions. When it came to black and Hispanic respondents, however, the responses were similar to what they had for the first question. And so what they concluded here was that white Christians had a selective approach to Scripture, primarily that was aimed at preserving the racial order as they preferred it.